I want to play a clip. I want to do a little. I want to play a little game here. Now, you may recognize this, so I want you to be quiet, Cliff. I want you to give the opportunity for people listening at home to take a guess on where we found this clip and who this clip might be. I want to play. This is B. I want to play clip 1B. Okay, and I want people to listen to this guy, and just picture in your mind who they think this guy is. Whether it's just some random guy we found, whatever it is. Let's play this clip.
We're all in this together. You know, the history of the New York Rifle and Pistol Association, the NRA, from the inception has been very, very close. The NRA was started 1871 right here in New York State. It was started by some Yankee generals who didn't like the way my Southern boys had the ability to shoot in what we call the War of Northern Aggression. Now, y'all might call it the Civil War, but we call it the War of Northern Aggression down south. But that was the very reason that they started the National Rifle Association, was to teach and train the civilian in the use of the standard military firearm. And I am one who still feel very strongly that that is one of our most greatest charges that we can have today, is to train the civilian in the use of the standard military firearm, so when they have to fight for their country, they're ready to do it. Also, when they're ready to fight tyranny, they're ready to do it. Also, when they're ready to fight tyranny, they have the wherewithal and the weapons to do it.
Okay, now a couple of things here about this. One is, what I loved is this is a talk that's taking place in New York, and the guy says, we called it the War of Northern Aggression, and the audience sort of laughs, and then he says, no, that's what we call it. And then everybody sort of goes, how, what? And then this guy goes on to say, the NRA was set up to train civilians how to handle military weapons in the event that they have to fight for their country or fight tyranny. In other words, whether they have to fight their country or fight against their country. We're teaching them to use military-grade weapons. I want people to think about just how insane that conversation sounded. Again, I challenge you, think about who you think that guy is. Let's play the next clip, still thinking about who is this guy?
Eric Holder. What else do I need to say about Eric Holder other than the fact that, by God, obviously we ain't smart enough for him to brainwash us, because he says that's what they need to do. We just need to brainwash these people and get that gun thinking out of their mind. That's what the man said. Rabidly anti-gun, rabidly un-American. Involved in trying to kill the Second Amendment at the United Nations, Eric Holder, and our Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton. Right there, right in the middle of it. And what do they want to do? Right in the United Nations today, they have an initiative that would make it illegal for individuals all over the world to own firearms. And that's what they're passing, and that's what this administration is supporting. They don't trust us with guns. We're not smart enough. We're not good enough to have guns.
There you have it. Okay, now, Cliff, do you know who this guy is who was speaking last June in New York State?
It is the ever-sexy, pot-bellied, and very well-educated Jim Porter, a lawyer in Birmingham, Alabama, who is done everything for the NRA short of swabbing the toilets during his time there, and is about to become the new president of the NRA, because they thought having David Keene as their president, the guy whose son went around in a little shooting spree in Washington, D.C. from when he had road rage, shooting at people and is spending time in jail for doing that, but his daddy didn't want him to have there to be background checks for people like his own son. They didn't think David Keene apparently was crazy enough. So they had to go get War of Northern Aggression guy, Jim Porter, whose dad, by the way, was also a former president of the NRA and presided over the infamous meeting in 1977 known as the Cincinnati Revolt. I say with great irony as I say here in Cincinnati, because this is where the national meeting was, where they overthrew the people that stood for what the NRA used to stand for, which he was talking about, although somewhat incorrectly, teaching people how to shoot straight, sport shooting, hunting, and the rest. And it was taken over by a radical bunch of lunatics who have ruled it ever since. And this guy's dad was part of that.
This guy,
so the great Jim Porter.
This guy is the new president of the NRA. I mean, this isn't just some dude that we recorded on a street corner talking, like a moron. This is a guy who is like integral in terms of the policy apparatus in this country regarding guns. This nut job who claims that the NRA was set up to provide paramilitary training for American citizens in the event that they have to go to war, because apparently the military training is not enough, or in an event that they have to attack their own government.
Yep. Let's be clear,
this
okay?
Is insane.
Because sometimes we're not. I think I am always pretty clear on this, but I don't know that everybody is. This is what he's doing. That's treason, by the way. And that is not the interpretation the NRA has, which includes this nutbag and what Lane LaPierre throws out there. No, they have no understanding of history. They have no understanding of the Constitutional Convention, of the original Articles of the Confederation that were way too weak. So we had a stronger Constitution that gave certain powers to the federal government. And the Second Amendment was there very simply because they looked at the Shays Rebellion, other rebellions like that. They looked at attacks from, at the time, Native Americans and from the British. It was a way without a standing army to protect our country from attacks without and within. It was nothing to do with going after our own government. It was how to protect our own government and how to protect our country. This is some made-up fantasy by a guy in an organization that still haven't gotten over the Civil War. And believe me, if you think you hear what he's saying and you think that's unique, listen to Ted Nugent about how the South should have won the Civil War in a column he wrote in the Washington Times. Look at the guy who started the current incarnation of the NRA, whose name was Harlan Carter, who when his mom told him there were some Hispanic kids in his area of Laredo, Texas, hanging out outside the house, bothering her, he went and found one of them and tried to kidnap him back to the house. And the kid said, no, he shot him and killed him, was convicted of murder and got off on a technicality. Then, of course, went to work for the Immigration and Naturalization Service, a natural place for this guy to work. And eventually we became the first guy after the NRA overthrew the old guard to run it, a guy that maybe committed one of the first acts of stand your ground. And of course had that Southern mentality. This is what I try to explain to people so much. This is not the mentality of someone who's a hunter in Maine or Wisconsin or somewhere. This is a Confederate, anti-government, racist, anti-U.S. Read a couple of Michael Lynn's books.
I was going to say, how would this be different? How would Jim Porter sound different than basically going down to some type of KKK rally? I mean, we didn't have the N-word. And we probably didn't have a couple of F-bombs. But I mean, this notion of like the War of Northern Aggression. No, I know you thought that was a joke. I'm being serious. Right. And then, of course, we got the UN over here. I mean, this guy, it's just shocking. Now,
and it shouldn't need to be said, but just so anybody listening understands, the UN treaty was about international arms trading. It had nothing to do with civilian ownership of firearms. It was about selling guns into hostile places where mass groups of people are being murdered. Like Fast and Furious, which I put quotes around, and other such things, it was another way, because the NRA literally sits there trolling around like the scumbags they are for things they can blow up and take out of context to scare their right-wing, again, Southern-based, Confederate mentality, rural constituency into being scared and wanting to fight back against their own government and against minorities and against that. Is what
I knew you would
say
that.
About.
I knew you would say that, Cliff Schechter.
What'd you say?
I knew you would say that, Cliff Schechter. Of course, you are one of the Illuminati who would come here to tell us about how wonderful the UN is. Now,
where can I join the Illuminati? I'm actually a combo. I'm part Illuminati, part Bilderberger, part Mason.
Right.
And part,
well, we
and
call
course,
you what we do. We
Jew.
know that you're one of the Rothschilds.